My blessings and love to you. I am Aaron. It is a joy to see you all. What I think of as negative polarity lives with much contraction, contracted energy field, armoring. And what I think of as positive polarity lives in spaciousness. This is not a way that we distinguish positive versus negative. It's simply the way they present themselves, just as the day is bright and the night is dark. No value judgment, just spaciousness versus contraction. When something is pleasant in your experience, think here of the warmth of sunshine on a spring day, or the fragrance of beautiful flowers, or the presence of your beloved cat or dog cuddling up against you. The taste of something that's delicious to your taste buds. You will, of course, experience it as pleasant. And your energy field will open toward it. When something is unpleasant in your experience, you will contract a bit. If there's sudden sharp pain, for example, you'll contract with the pain. If somebody approaches you with anger, you pull back. Again, no judgment. You are mammals, and these are mammal reflexes. To open to that which is pleasant and to pull back from that which is unpleasant. There is no judgment of this, no problem with it. It becomes a challenge when it becomes habitual and deepens. So that which is unpleasant is experienced as a closing and armoring and pushing away. And that which is pleasant is experienced as opening, but also there can be grasping, which moves into the contracted area. So we're not talking about pleasant and unpleasant, or the reaction to pleasant or unpleasant, but the habitual holding of these. And the way it moves into a habitual response, so that when you see something coming at you, you not only contract, which is normal, you can feel when I do that, there's a subtle contraction. That which is aware of contraction is not contracted. Awareness notices contracting. Hello, contraction. And hold space for it. Compassion for the human who is contracting. And then it releases. It does not move into a karmic pattern. It's just a human reflex. No problem. For all of you, you're human. When there is something harsh or unpleasant in your experience, you contract. Most of you have been working for a long time with meditation and looking at that which is contracted, not holding the contraction, just noting, contracting, and reopen. So our effort here is never to avoid a contraction, but to be mindful of when there is contraction. Contraction from something that's unpleasant, or contraction from something that arouses grasp. Both can bring contraction and separation, duality. Our effort here is to rest in a field of non-duality. And effort's not really the right word. Our intention is to rest in the field of non-duality by bringing awareness to separation. What does separation feel like? Let me pass that question to you. What does separation feel like? Would anyone like to speak to that?
Separation for me feels like fear and anxiety and not trusting in the process of life.
Separation feels like fear and anxiety, and not trusting in the process of life. And fear and anxiety are a ground for separation. But they don't have to be a ground for separation. Fear and anxiety are experiences that arise in the human mind and body. And when awareness touches the experience of fear, for example, with mindfulness, with compassion, just noting, fear has arisen in this human. I hold love for this human in whom fear has arisen. That which is aware of fear is not afraid. Right here with the fear is non-fear. Spaciousness is love. Love for that which inspired the fear and love for myself. And so we keep practicing that way. Deepening the ability to acknowledge contraction, to acknowledge the arising of an experience of separation. And it's an illusion. It's an experience of the illusion of separation, not of real separation. Separation is always an illusion. Nothing is separate. But it's a quite convincing illusion. When we experience that illusion, do we get caught further into it? Deeper and deeper, caught and more caught and more caught. Or do we learn the ability, really remember, not so much learn, but remember the ability to reconnect, the free will choice. I choose not to move into the illusion of duality and separation. One of the most powerful ways that I know to invite that reconnecting is through the practice of gratitude. And of course, Thanksgiving is next week. And in November, I usually talk about gratitude. So here we are. When something is uncomfortable, it can be very hard to feel gratitude because there's so much armor. The whole experience of separation comes up so strong. And yet, when we remember, I have a choice to be caught in this whole illusion of separation. And remember, no, nothing has ever been separate. I hold my heart I open to this experience. And perhaps we can say thank you. 2 weeks ago, Barbara had some rather extensive surgery, skin cancer surgery. You can see some of the scar on her face. Some of it goes into the hairline, invisible. She found it hard to sleep the night before. She was not happy about what she knew would be an uncomfortable process, the surgery itself and the period of recovery. She had fear. What if they can't get all the cancer out? She knew she would have to then undergo radiation or other treatment. It was an unpleasant experience. Now, she listens to me. I'll say that for Barbara. She can't really get away from it. So I asked her, right here with anxiety, with dread, with aversion, can you think of anything to say thank you? The first thing that occurred to her was thank you to modern medicine. They can get this cancer out and save my life. This may be unpleasant, but it will not kill me. I said, good. Now go further. Thank you. She said, thank you to the experience of fear that reminds me that fear is arisen from conditions, impermanent and not self. And that which is aware of fear is not afraid. Thank you, I said. Go further. Thank you to this opportunity to practice resting in that awareness, to stabilize that awareness. And on we went. She was not trying to get rid of the fear or of the contraction that came with the fear, but to remember right there with fear was spaciousness. And she did not have to lock down into a contracted state. Watching anger, fear, aversion, but just to open up and say, thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher. You have so many teachers in your world right now. Maybe there's the angry neighbor who's pushing at you. How about the teachers you'll meet next week at your family Thanksgiving table? Are there going to be some teachers there? People who have different beliefs than you do. Maybe unpleasant arguments. I'm sure some of you were experiencing body pain of one sort or another. Maybe even medical conditions like Barbara had. And yes, the cancer is all out. There's still a sizable scar, but it's healed. She had a huge black eye. You couldn't see that ceiling. These are all impermanent conditions, even a scar. The scar heals. If there's a scar on the face, there's a scar on the face. She's not entering a beauty contest. It's just a scar. The cancer is released. Thank you. Thank you. So she lay there on the University of Michigan Cancer Center in the hospital, on the treatment table. And she was awake. It was a local anesthetic. She could feel them, of course, put in the injections that brought in the anesthetic. Pain, pain, pain. Thank you. The wonder that they can put these small injections in and then do a very large area of cutting. And I won't feel it. Thank you. Thank you to this opportunity for life, for living a life of love, for sharing the Dharma, for the surgery that's helping to keep me honest, to be honest that I can live what I teach. Thank you. So much to be grateful for. There are the environmental challenges that are less personal in some ways, but very lethal to your world. And all the different conditions of the environment. There are the political challenges, the wars, the children starving and dying. How can you say thank you to that? What has this come to teach you? That's the basic question. Thank you, teacher. What have you come to teach me? What could wars possibly come to teach us? From my perspective, they offer the opportunity to see how easily aversion to others can arise, separation can arise, and to hold the strong intention, I choose not to become caught in the stories of separation. I choose to keep my heart open with compassion. So we can say that these are all teachers of compassion. But even more, they are an opportunity to speak up, not necessarily to go out with picket signs, just to speak with kindness to your fellow citizens who may be of a different nationality or race, to make sure that you observe any fear or prejudice in yourself, and it make very clear, I will not enact this. I will see that this has arisen from fear, this separation response, and I will not enact it. I choose to live my interconnection with all that is. So now, as we approach the holiday of Thanksgiving, each year I invite you to reflect. What do you wish to be thankful, to remember your thankfulness for? What strong catalyst is there in your life right now to which you would wish to say, thank you, teacher? Long ago and far away, the beings that I were lived in a lot of separation. I looked at people around me and said, they are different than I am. And I did not think of myself in those days as being prejudiced particularly. But I was raised not to trust somebody who looked different. That song, I can't remember what show it's from. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. What show does that come from?
South Pacific.
South Pacific. Thank you. Yes. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. We are taught fear. You are not born with fear. You are taught fear. It's not bad that you are taught fear. You agreed to come into the system wherein you would be taught separation and fear in order to commit yourself to deeper understanding of the truth of non-separation. And that fear is simply an arising object, arising from conditions and with no ultimate reality. So we come back to that statement, thank you, teacher. I know when we've talked about this before, one of the primary topics for people the week before Thanksgiving was the challenging relatives at the Thanksgiving feast. What do we do with those people who are deeply prejudiced, seem narrow-minded? How do we handle that? Somebody comes along and pushes you. Well, if you note, Aunt Sally has certain beliefs that differ from my beliefs. And she's going to bring them up, and she's going to bring them up with anger. How can you not get hooked into the anger? Or you have a medical condition, and it's painful, and there's aversion. How can you not get hooked into the stories of the aversion? I just want to make this clear distinction. It's fine to experience aversion. That's normal for the human. You have the gift of mindfulness and awareness, mindfulness of the arising of the conditions that bring aversion, and awareness. That which is aware of aversion is not adverse, and you cannot hide in that awareness and deny that there's aversion. That's not honest. But you can clearly see there is that within me in which aversion still arises. Contraction arises. And then the choice to contract around it, scolding myself, or to hold myself with compassion and the open heart. In the time before time, there was no self or other. Everything existed in one grand spacious awareness. Nothing had expressed out of that core awareness. That love. You can imagine how beautiful that might be. Nothing feeling separate, nothing feeling threatening. But how would you learn compassion? If there was no ground that needed compassion, needed the container of compassion. So it was easy, but it was stagnant. It was not what you came for. You came to grow, to learn, to open yourself to the boundlessness of your true being. You are love. And each catalyst that arises is a new opportunity to say, Thank you, teacher. Thank you. Take a deep breath. Acknowledge fear or pain or some other discomfort are present here. And I have the capability and the birthright to be with these challenges without contracting further into separation. This pain, it is you. The pain of children starving in Sudan or Gaza, this is you. You were that child, and you were the one who feeds the child. The pain of people burning up from bombs in war-torn parts of the world, they are you. And you were the one who stopped the bombs with your spaciousness and love. You don't have to be in those parts of the world. Each time you see it on TV, and contraction comes and anger comes, can you take care of the anger? Watch how you contract with anger at this or that situation. And find compassion for all sentient beings that find themselves in painful situations. And we find compassion for our Mother Earth, who right now is suffering. So much imbalance in the elements on Earth, and so little care for that imbalance. People saying it has to stop, but not giving what is needed to balance it. When there's anger about the environmental conditions on Earth, and you feed more fire into it, you're just feeding more fire into the Earth, feeding the imbalance. There was a lifetime for me when I lived in a beautiful part of the Earth, environmentally beautiful, lush with water and growing plants, abundance for food, nobody hungry. So I grew from baby into boy into young man with a great joy for the earth around me and for my community, in which there were farmers and fishermen. People tended flocks of sheep or similar animals, birds that lay eggs, massive abundance, and we took it for granted. It was easy to forget to say thank you, but it was also a very joyful place to grow up, very free of fear of lack or scarcity. Very easy to be loving and open with my neighbors, to share because there was so much abundance. No fear in sharing. And then there was a period of drought. The animals died, the lakes dried up, the rivers. The growing plants withered. The trees began to fall on the ground because the earth was so dry it could no longer hold them up. There was not enough food. And people began to look over their shoulder. They forgot the joy of sharing with each other. Out of a fear, will my needs be met? They forgot how vital it was that we knew ourselves and our community, our tribe, and our neighboring tribes to be one and to take care of each other. And we became self-centered. It was not the environmental disaster that destroyed us, but our reaction to that disaster. We were just being young. Fear arose, we contracted into separation. Me against you. And we hoarded for ourselves. We did not take care of our neighbors, and everyone died. I lived a different lifetime. Not that far apart, a few hundred years, in a different part of the world, in which there was also great abundance when I was a child, and that sense of interconnection with everyone. Similarly, harsh environmental conditions developed. There was not enough rain. The rivers dried up. The crops failed. The animals died. But these people had a different learning experience from childhood. It was an interesting worldview. There was not really a word in that language for other. No self and other. There was just us. I can't say that the language defined the experience or the experience created the language. But when the food was short, everybody treated everybody else as if it was themselves. Whatever there was shared. I would not say there was no fear. But because of our culture, fear did not lead us to hate others or treat others differently than we had when there was abundance. And this nation of people, they pulled through very well. People went far afield into the forests and found some kinds of food. Hunters. And people found different fruits from trees that we did not normally eat, but which were edible. People went further afield to rivers where there were fish and brought it back for everyone taking care of everyone. If anything, it brought us closer. It was not that there was no fear, but there was not fear, will my needs be met? But maybe a bit of fear, will our needs be met? And an open-heartedness that said, we trust the abundance of our universe. We invite enough that no one will starve. We will take care of everybody. So fear arose, but we did not practice our fear. We did not move into separation, into stinginess and greed. We practiced connection and love. And the result was that almost everyone survived. I think this is a major lesson for your world today. There is enough abundance in this world to feed everyone. If people did not get caught in greed. How do we say no without hatred, without negating others or judging? How do we say no to the greed in the world? How do we hold our hearts open to the fear in others that leads to that kind of greed without heeding them? Here is where we keep coming back to thank you, teacher. Can you see how what's happening in the world today is such a profound teacher for living from the place of connection? Or can push you back into the old habits of separation, greed, and fear. Each time, each moment, you have a choice. How am I going to respond here? Can I live this situation with more love? Thank you, teacher. Seeing it not as something that's out to destroy you, but as something that has come to serve you, to teach you. And that you do have the power to transcend it. Thank you, teacher. Now I would love to hear from some of you. What are some of the catalysts that you're facing? And how might you relate to them more fully as teacher rather than as something out to destroy you personally or to destroy your world? Or those who might have some thoughts on this and would like to share. I don't know if any of you were reading the caption. It leaves something to be desired. Thoughts it says leak to shit. Well, shit is okay. Shit is a fertilizer. We learn so much from each other, and I very much value what you would like to share.
Well, so last weekend, Patricia and I had guests over for dinner, and our guests, they're all friends of ours. They all have a lot of problems, and with health and family, and it's their problems are real. But I saw that I had an aversion to, I didn't want to get sucked into the negativity. I guess that's what it is. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you call that aversion, but what I did, rather than try to talk people out of their negativity or their depression, um, I just started joking around with people, um, creating a common ground. Like, yeah, stuff happens when you get older. We're all we're all in the same boat. Um, Joking with people, you know, because I know that I can't solve any of these problems. Um, and and I don't want to have aversion to these people. I'd rather have compassion. But when people are steeped in this really negative chain of thoughts that just goes on and on, I just don't like being around that. So, so I try to deal with it as best I can. Um, I don't know if this is, yeah, I mean, that's just the best I could do. I can do with that. Would you like to comment? Yeah,
And you attempted to be of help, at least not to attack or
yeah,
pull away,
yeah,
and not to help, just presence,
yeah.
being willing to hear others. But there's also a point of kindness when people are going on and on and on in negativity about this and that. When you can say to them, I hear how sad or afraid or angry you are. I wonder if you're learning anything positive from the situation. Just shifting the track a little bit.
Uh, yeah, I think that that would be very difficult to say to these people, frankly. I don't want to stand up as their teacher. They're friends more than anything. And
It's not as a teacher.
yeah,
It's just, as your friend, I hear your pain.
right.
But tell me, are you learning anything positive here? I'm
Mhm.
curious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the other thing that I'm constantly reacting to is people on the political spectrum. Um, I almost have a harder time with the people who are against Trump and that get so angry about Trump than I do with people who support what he's doing, because it just seems like it's just needless anger, and it's like nobody's really, it's just needless anger, and it just feeds on itself, and everybody gets so angry about it. So yeah, so that's another difficult one for me to deal with, because a lot of my friends are very liberal leaning, and then once we get into that discussion and it goes into the political thing, it's there's all that anger comes out about what's happening. And I don't want to get caught in that. I just don't want to get caught in that, even though I don't like what's going on either.
But to get caught is just more anger. I hear you. And it's wise to say, no, I choose not to get caught, not to perpetuate and deepen this anger. But then what do we do with others' anger and our own aversion to their anger? How can we most skillfully work with that?
I changed the topic. I changed the topic so that I can talk where there's no feeling of, there's no conflict really, and so that we could all kind of be on the same wavelength together. And again, not to try to talk anybody out of their opinions. I mean, sometimes if someone's really a seeker, I can go into, how reacting negatively to negative things isn't helping us. But for most people, they're not ready for that. So I just try to disengage from that.
Yes, thank you. And that's wise, but sometimes it's impossible. And I'm asking in part because I knew this comes up every year, that people are going to be with people around a Thanksgiving table. And there's going to be a lot of difference of opinion.
Yeah, speaking politically, I've been experiencing a lot of sadness and fear around the immigration issue for the people who are hurting. ICE has been out in my community in Chapel Hill, and I'm just getting reports every day. ICE is here, ICE is there. And it sort of feels like living in Germany in 39. It's really upsetting to me. And I really feel so sad for the people, vulnerable people that are affected. When I say ICE, I mean immigration, the immigration people and border patrol people, picking people up off the street.
Your sadness is understandable. I think what's important is that you have compassion for yourself and your sadness, that you not create separation. They're bad, this is bad, I have to fix that. But just, this is so painful and I hold it with love. And it's hard to do that because there's the tendency to say, I have to fix this, I have to fix that. Yes, it's very sad what's happening in many communities. And I understand the concern of what could evolve from the prejudice and hatred. But hatred can never say no to hatred. How do we break through that hatred?
I wanted to respond to Robert and that situation, or all of us, and the situation of people having different opinions, people coming up with having anger, people complaining about their health or their hardships in their life. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I can slip into a place of just curiosity, almost like stepping back from my opinions and my beliefs and my judgments and just simply be curious. Why did you make that decision? Why did you vote for Trump? Why did you feel that was a good choice? Why do you I don't know. I'm not sure how you would do it with somebody who was depressed or sad, but asking them, to just talk about it. People like to talk. And so just being a listener and a curious listener, that helps me sometimes.
Stay open and truly listen. Not to try to fix or even change the other in any way, but really be curious. And so it takes strong attention to any aversion in the self. I don't like this, fix it. No, you shouldn't think that way. These kind of thoughts. Watching that coming up in the self and stepping back to listen, holding space. This is one of the big lessons for this stuff. Learning to truly live as a part of each other. I am you and you are me. What does it mean to live with non-separation and yet still not be afraid to speak up when somebody is being harmed? You speak up not to assault the person who is doing the harm, but just to say, no, I am witnessing this and I will not permit this kind of harm. I don't choose to be in a world where people can continue to harm each other. But I do not say that, you cannot say that out of fear or judgment, but with love. This is the tricky part, because you cannot determine how they're going to hear you. And they may hear your non-judgmental statement as judgmental. And then it's important that you not have aversion to the way they are hearing you. If I do this, if I say this, they may misunderstand it. They may then hate me. Can I be prepared to hold space for that? But I think this is the great gift that your world is experiencing today. The opportunity to remember the power of universal compassion. The power of the open heart that can truly listen and is not afraid to speak up, but does not speak up in aversion to others, but speaks up just with a no. I will not stand by and witness people being starved, being killed, being mistreated. No, just a gentle no.
Getting into a political, not getting into, but listening to someone asking my questions without trying to change her or without even trying to share my piece was at times difficult because I was almost afraid to share my belief. Let me put it that way. So it was a good mindfulness act in seeing how I contracted around the thought of actually sharing my beliefs with her. That's not why I started the conversation with this person. I said, I just want to hear from you. I just want to know why. She didn't ask me back, which was fine because I was clear that I was just curious, but I was quaking a little bit in case I did have to share my truth.
And when you can hold compassionate space for that human that you are, that's quaking a bit, afraid you'll be judged, attacked, even physically harmed, and still can hold a spacious, clear, steady, and radiant truth. This can change things. I am recalling here a conversation Barbara had many years ago. This would take us back to when her children were young. And they were on the beach on Lake Michigan. They were playing a group of Boy Scouts, I guess, Cub Scouts. And Barbara was sitting back, just present. And somebody came up and started to talk to her. And she had a notepad, so it had to happen with writing. And the person said to her after a few minutes of conversation, "Are you a Christian?" And Barbara said, "Well, I'm not sure what you mean by, are you a Christian? Are you asking if I have certain beliefs? What beliefs do you wonder if I have?" And it evolved into this person truly believing that anyone who did not believe her way was doomed to hell. She and Barbara sat for probably 2 hours talking, because Barbara was not offended by her questions. She was able to hear Barbara, who said, "Actually, I was born into a Jewish home. I'm a Buddhist teacher. And I have a deep love for Jesus." And the woman said, "How can you like all of those things?" And they had a very powerful conversation. And it perhaps opened some doors for this woman who saw only in black and white before this conversation. Now, Barbara had no need to convince this person, no right or wrong, just speaking her truth. I think when we can do that, when we can hear that the other person has developed in different ways and thus grown into different experiences of truth, and not separate and say, no, there's only one truth, but there are many dimensions of truth. This opens a door to a different kind of healing. It's a very gradual healing. It's not instant. This may be one of 1,000 conversations this woman would have to have before she lets go of, I'm right and you're wrong. But when there is sincere interest in how the other person opens to their beliefs and willingness to hear the other person, it gives the other person the opportunity to explore their beliefs and thus for growth. So some of you know exactly who will be at your Thanksgiving table, and maybe they're all very congenial people. And some of you don't know. What are you going to do about that guest of Aunt Sally, who is belligerent and angry? How are you going to relate to that guest? How can you hear that person from a place of awareness? This is a person who perhaps has some fear. This is a person who sees the world in a different way than I do. Not just what do I have to teach him or her, but what do they have to teach me? And when something is said that brings up anger, how can I relate to that anger in a loving way, in a compassionate way? Not needing to fix the anger, but just present with the anger. These holidays are such a wonderful opportunity because so many of you end up with numerous people, perhaps close family, perhaps friends or neighbors. And you're sitting around a table and you're eating a delicious meal, and the different views come out. How do you handle it? Thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher.
In a class recently, I learned from you about dragon speech and the inner dragon, which was new for me. And in connection with what we're talking about with everyone's shares, that's been prominent in my awareness of when is my dragon awakened and how do I respond to it in the separateness that that creates. And I also have the luxury of not having to be around a lot of people anymore that if I don't want to because I retired. So I've been having this lovely opportunity to be more selective, and it gives me some spaciousness in preparing for situations. And that also gives me a better foundation for when an unexpected situation pops up. I can easily, more easily anyway, feel the dragon, kind of almost laugh at the dragon a little bit, like, oh, here comes my dragon. And also just working with my breath and making the conscious decision that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, because it sometimes feels like there's nothing I can do right now. Something that I can do that I've found very powerful is pivoting to the idea that I can work with my breath and my connection being a portal of love and light. And I don't understand it all, but I know that that's making a big impact. And that is something that I can do.
In yourself, feeling that inner dragon, seeing it in others. Basically, what we're seeing is fear. Out of fear, the one who wants to control, whether it's you or someone else. I know what to do. We'll do it my way. And that in the self, and that in others. And when we hear that, when the first, hello, dragon, the dragon with flaming breath wants to control things. It wants to protect others. But it's reacting to fear and belief. I know what to do. Nobody else knows what to do. I'm going to control this. Excuse me. Cat. So when there's mindfulness, dragon has arrived. Ah, I choose not to allow the dragon to run things. Right here with the dragon, where is my radiance? And how do I invite that radiance to shine through the dark cloud cover of the dragon, or the fiery breath of the dragon? So thank you, that's helpful.
When Lalita was dying, I very much was hearing this process of dying, and it sort of felt like in line with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where there's a transitional period. And I would love to hear from you, Erin, about, is it individual? Is it how mature a soul is? Like, what is the process of dying and getting to where you're supposed to be, kind of thing? Perhaps we're not all supposed to know this, but I'm very curious that there was very much a feeling that Lalita was going through a process. So I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Thank you for your question. I think it's a very important question. It would take me several hours to answer it fully. It would take me many hours, not several. So I'm going to give you a brief answer here. And what we've been talking about is that perhaps one of the co-creation workshops in the spring will focus on co-creating a joyful and open-hearted and peaceful transition. Learning about the transition process and how we each can participate for ourselves and others in supporting a smooth transition. As one approaches that time of transition, gradually the physical senses fade back. Seeing, touching, there's less awareness of it. That's not the right term. There's less consciousness of it. Hearing is the last to go. Conscious of hearing. But gradually the field of presence shifts from the mundane object to the supramundane. People picking up the person who's going through that transition touching in on more supramundane objects like light and spaciousness. And there is a contrast between the mundane, the form, and the formless, and a clearer if somebody has done some meditation practice. It will not happen without that practice. But for somebody who has had some practice, beginning to more clearly see the distinction between formed and formless, and to see the self as part of the formless, and how various aspects of the self emerged into form temporarily, and now we're releasing. And we come back again and again into the formless. What am I when I am not this body, these thoughts, these opinions, these reactions, these sensations? What remains? The transition process allows us to see, like seeing an object against a brilliant light. And the object is clearly a mundane object, and the light is expansive behind the object. And gradually the object breaks apart until we see that there never was anything there but light. Then, as we open to knowing ourselves as that light, we are in the situation where we're able to literally release old karma. Because we drop away the whole idea of me and mine. We see how it all arose from conditions, it's passing away, and I can just put it aside. It's not something I have to fix. Just by seeing it, I let it go. It's as if you've all worked with shadow play at some time or other, shadow hand puppets. A strong light, and there's this giant creature on the far wall. It's huge, it's going to destroy us, but it's just an illusion. We start to see how all the old beliefs and contractions and opinions, it's all just part of the illusion. And we shift into knowing ourselves as the supramundane. Then the transition can carry on from there. But if we have not done that practice, we get caught up in the illusion and almost immediately pulled back into a new incarnation. Not immediately, but soon pulled back into a new incarnation. And the form that that illusion takes will be the predominant karma that pulls us back. So if anger and hatred have been predominant, and the illusion that comes up is one filled with anger and hatred, and it draws us back into a new incarnation in which we're going to need to be around a lot of anger and hatred and change our relationship to it, have a chance to experience it and to grow and learn. Again, thank you, teacher. It's not a cruel thing that's coming to us. It's simply the result of our karma and what we next need to learn in order to grow in the ways we choose to grow. But I think that Yeshua and I and Mary and others, we will put this together as one of the spring workshops so that we can really expand upon it. Thank you.
I would just like to offer that one of my greatest supports is the daily messages I get from Aaron and Yeshua, the email messages from Deep Spring. They seem to be so well chosen for these times when opportunities for frustration and dissatisfaction and wanting things to be different are presented every day. And it's a constant aspiration for me to take those messages to heart and think about them a little every morning and go into the day with that.
And you know they are random. Nobody is sitting down and saying, what's happening in the world this week? What messages should we put out? There's some kind of random method by which they're pulled out. Group consciousness. I'm happy that you and others do read them.
When we say we want to say thank you to these challenges or catalysts, are we concluding that the universe is purposely giving us those challenges, like they're divinely planned and they're all supposed to happen? Are we saying that if we're saying thank you for them, are we saying that they were given to us on purpose?
I don't see it that way. What I see is that we co-create these challenges. They were not preordained nor divinely planned, but you have the power to invite what you choose to learn, either to push yourself back into darkness for some period of time, if that's what you need, or to bring yourself further into the light and into the awakened heart and mind, and to choose to invite the experiences that can support that. Interestingly, it can be the same experience, a harsh experience. If it's your karmic response to react with aversion and hatred and closing and fear, that will lead you in one direction. And if there's a possibility of seeing that, the shadow puppet on the wall, seeing the big shadow and saying, I know this. It's just an illusion. It's a very real illusion. I'm in being. But at another level, it's just an illusion. And instead of contracting and pushing it away and heating it, I can say thank you. That bringing the hands together, thank you, changes the energy. It allows us then to say, what am I offered an opportunity to learn from this difficult experience? What options does it give me? What new possibilities does it bring me? So this is not something coming to you from outside of you. It's you co-creating with everything around you. Two people go through the same experience, and one person comes out deeper in fear and hatred, and the other with an open heart and a sense of gratitude. Because one has done more of that spiritual work, ready to see the conditioned response, no, not this, or contracting. Right here with contraction, where is spaciousness? I choose to rest in that spaciousness, observing the contraction without condemnation of the contraction, holding it with compassion. And this opens the new possibilities of compassion and opening heart and spaciousness and connection, and finding therein a deeper truth. Does that answer your question?
I'm still a bit puzzled by it all. Would you say, though, that there are some things that are divinely planned and some things that aren't? Or is it all just co-creation?
Every being has free will. there is overall what I'd consider a divine plan for the evolution of all life into the light at its own pace and going through as much darkness as it needs to go through to get to that place. Because the unconditioned is spaciousness, is a light, is a love. The divine plan is to bring that into focus. But we each learn that through millennia in our own ways, and can spend as much time in the darkness as we need. In a sense, it seems like you're asking, is that which we call the divine or unconditioned conscious? And my experience of it is that it is conscious in a certain way. But it is deeply, totally observant of and respectful to free will, and will never impose its idea of where we're going on anything, only holding a door open to the immensity of love and light that are available. It's a wonderful question to consider. What is this unconditioned? Is it conscious? If it is conscious, what effect does that have on our consciousness, our individuated consciousness? Is our individuated consciousness in any way separate from that divine consciousness? If nothing is separate, how could it be separate? And yet, since there is no duality, contraction and spaciousness, love and hatred, fear, generosity and greed, they're non-dual. And that which is offers the field in which we can experience all of these, so that each of us from our individuated consciousness and with free will may make a conscious choice for love, for light, for spaciousness. And this is what is shifting the universe into a positive polarity, shifting the world and the universe. There are multiple universes, and some are deeply mired in negativity. But this universe in which you live has the opportunity to become a very positively polarized field of co-creation. Isn't it wonderful that you're part of this choosing light and love? Such an amazing thing to participate in.
I've been thinking about a friend of mine who rails on and on and on with incredible vitriol and anger at Trump, and trying to remember, what do I do when she does that? And sometimes I don't respond. I just allow her to speak and I just don't respond. But one of the things that I've been doing recently that I think has been a little bit helpful is that I speak to her about how injured Trump must be, how wounded he is, how much grief he must hold in his own being to do the things and say the things that he says. And I think that it just opens a teeny tiny little portal of compassion inside her. And so I just wanted to share that that's one of the things that I have found can sometimes be a little helpful when people are so full of angst and anger at the political situation. Thank you.
I agree that that's very helpful. We cannot speak down to people. We cannot even just say, oh, I hear, yes, I hear how angry you are. That can create a sense of separation. But what you're saying is a doorway that helps that person see Trump or others like him in a new light. Now, in some ways, it may be easier to do that with Trump. Could you, Iris, look back at someone like Hitler and open your heart to Hitler and the terrible destruction that we see looking back, and find compassion? How damaged he must have been as a child to have grown into the man he was. It's hard. So at that point, just compassion meditation for us all of us who were here, in human bodies, human minds, human experiences of pain, of loss, of suffering, of confusion, and the deep wish for well-being for all sentient beings. This is the best we can do, and it's enough.
I have been wondering very recently, can a being become negative without going through that wounding that we see in so many beings who feel pulled through the darkness? Can a being just, as they become and are, just feel a pull toward darkness without going through wounding?
Yes, some beings are simply more grounded in darkness as the original seed that they are. Let me say that carefully. Nothing is completely dark or completely light in its origin. But the first growth of consciousness, even the tiny one-celled plant, one-celled plant that may feel the sun on it and receive moisture, and it creates conditions for it to thrive. And in that moment, it knows the possibility of thriving. And then there's heavy frost and it dies, but at some level, it knows the possibility of thriving. Or another one-celled plant comes in and is almost immediately burned by a fire or chewed by an animal. And it becomes much more afraid to open itself into the world at any level because of the intensity of pain that it felt in its first immersion to the world. Now, one might ask, why did that happen to that being and something much kinder happened to another being? We would assume that those first one-celled plants do not yet have any karma. So to that degree, I think the universe is an equal opportunity employer. You come in and maybe it will be light and maybe it will be dark. Some incarnations it's going to be lighter, some it's going to be darker, and we're all going to experience light and darkness, joy and sorrow, love and peace. What do we do with these? How do we learn to stay connected and keep our hearts, our energy fields open with what we're experiencing? It's the constant teacher. Thank you, teacher. Thank you, teacher. I don't want this. But thank you, teacher. And our practice leads us to the ability to see ourselves contracting away from painful experience and remember I have the ability, I don't have the ability to avoid the pain of this experience, but I have the ability to choose to allow my heart to stay open, not to hate, not to separate. And just those words, thank you, teacher, can be very powerful.
I have another question.
Yes.
It's Celeste again. um, I'm doing the work of substitute teaching, and many times I sign up for a class for special education. And many of the children have a learning disability, or they can't talk. They have conditions of various types, which means they can't participate in the standard way of education. So I'm continually surprised at how many students there are like this. I didn't recall when I was going to school children like that. Maybe I just didn't notice because I was small. So my question is there a reason for it? Like, sometimes I wonder, were the people who were gassed by the Nazis in those chambers, were they affected to the extent where when they come into a life, they can't have a regular body or regular cognitive abilities? So I guess there's two questions. Is the amount of students who are in special ed nowadays greater than normal? And two, why would that be? Is there a reason for it?
Thank you. That's an interesting question. My perception is that 50 years ago, many special needs children were brought into separate classrooms and were not so visible. Even separate schools, but certainly separate programs. So you may not remember them being in your class because they were not in your class. They were in a special needs classroom. And it was believed then that they were best taken care of in that special needs classroom. Now, the plan is to bring them into the general community. But yes, there are more of them. I've had some interesting discussions on autism with people recently. Many more autistic children taking birth today. And some of these children are very old souls who are struggling to bring their own special mental and emotional and energetic capacities to the earth as teachers, willing to be on the earth plane, even though it's a very alien environment for them, out of love. And we don't know how to relate to these children. We're trying to fix them, to normalize them, rather than sitting back and saying, what to these children, what are they here to teach us? If they don't speak my language, how can I speak their language? So many of them are from very different than human environments and here to help the humans. But others, there are many karmic reasons. Have you read, you've probably read Testimony of Light by Helen Greaves. Have you read her book, Wheel of Eternity? I believe it may be out of print and hard to get. Maybe very expensive. But it's a book, a beautiful book about a child who is very much a special needs child, and through the book you start to understand the light that he brings in and the teaching that he's bringing to the human mother through his willingness to take on this, quote, defective mind and body. So simply, there are many reasons for this. I can't sum it up as one, it's this or it's that. But in each case, it's useful to ask, this child is here to teach and to learn. As a teacher, how can I help this child to learn? And what is this child here to teach us?
Thank you.
Thank you. Wishing you a blessed Thanksgiving. Find all there is to be thankful for, with no denial of the challenges. But for what am I truly thankful? Let your heart open on the question and rejoice. It's no denial of the challenges. Rejoice. I love you. Thank you for being with me tonight. I am out. I'll release the body to Barbara. Thank you. Okay, it's Barbara. Thank you all for being with us.